Well, hello there, Minecrafters. Thanks for coming by. We're back in the Creative Control series. That is a map-making series that I've started for you guys, and hopefully you've been enjoying the episodes so far. If you haven't seen them, check them out, because episode 1, we talked about the world spawn, how to kind of start your custom map. Episode 2, we talked about game rules. Definitely good information for people who have not really any command block experience, for those who want to get into custom maps. And today, I figured on episode 3 here, we should definitely talk about one of the one of the most important items or factors in a custom map, and that is mob spawning. So this episode we're going to be talking about how to control mob spawning. But before we get into that, as I said last time, I'm going to go over a few comments from the previous episode. So first one, and this episode was about game rules. First comment was from Cadence, and Cadence said, can you put a can destroy tag on fire? So I had mentioned this game rule here, do fire tick, and basically that allows fire to not spread, but also to go out if it's on or off. And basically the question is, there is an item tag that you can put on that can destroy blocks. Can you put a can destroy tag on fire? You cannot. In fact, some people reported it on the bug report website, and it was shut down by Mojang saying, no, you can't destroy fire. So I still highly recommend keeping this on true, do fire tick true. But if you're not going to do that, by all means, make sure there's no way a blaze can shoot at the ground or something like that. Another comment from Nate T. Bird had said, there's this game rule here, random tick speed. I previously thought it wasn't really useful, kind of fun to play with, but the suggestion is it's very good for builders when you're trying to lay out some vines or maybe grow some vegetation and have it just grow instantly so you can get on with building. I thought that was a really great piece of advice. Definitely keep the comments coming, guys, because I'm learning a lot from you too. So anyway, let us go into, I set up a super flat world for this whole episode here, but we're going to get into mob spawning and controlling that, and there's a bunch of different categories, so stay tuned for that. I'll meet you in the super flat world. Alright guys, I've got this super flat demonstration world here set up, ready to go, and we're going to be talking about mob spawning and controlling it to the benefit of the genre of the map that you choose to make. What I mean by that is, if you are making, say, a survival map, you're probably going to want the mobs to spawn kind of naturally, versus a horror map where you are probably going to want to spawn custom mobs right in front of the player's face to give them that jump scare. It all depends on what you want to do in the genre of map that you choose. So there are a number of different categories to keep in mind that can help or even stop mobs from spawning, and we're going to go over them. Hopefully it's pretty good information. There might even be some stuff that you never thought about. But starting off here, we have the granddaddy here, the kind of overlying game commands that help or prevent mobs from spawning. The first one here we talked about last episode here, the do mob spawning game rule. When I set it on true, right now I'm the only one in the world, but when I set it on true, all the mobs can naturally spawn. Now they seem to take, come on, I've tested this, and sometimes they come out immediately. There we go. There we go. We got some sheep over here. Got the gray one. Nice. Or light gray, maybe. And you can see if I do a test for at E, there we go. We've got a whole bunch. We got some rabbits and everything spawning here. And notice that if I turn it off, so I've turned it on false, it actually doesn't eliminate them from the world. If you want to eliminate them from the world, you have to do a kill command at E, and then you put the type in, and the easiest thing is just put ! player, and it's going to kill every mob in the game that's not a player. And because we have the game rule on false, there's no mob that can respawn in the world. This also affects hostile mobs. So if I change the difficulty to anything above peaceful, I've got on normal. Normally you could spawn slimes here, but you cannot because I have the spawning off. As soon as I turn it on, you'll see there are the slimes. If I turn it off difficulty, they're gone. And of course, lighting based on skylight. If I turn that off, you'll see if I turn the difficulty on later, there, everything is allowed to spawn. And if I turn off the game rule here, if I put it on false, it does not eliminate the mobs. If I turn the lighting back up, it doesn't eliminate the mobs, but it starts to burn skeletons or zombies. But if I change it to peaceful, it will eliminate all the hostile mobs. We still have a donkey. Very good. So I'm just going to kill him, kill all those rabbits and everything, and move on to block lighting. So the second category here we have is block lighting. It's kind of the most thought of way to prevent hostile mobs from spawning, especially in your own survival world. But keep in mind when you press F3, it will tell you how light the block is you're on, and it'll give your skylights. So you should not go by this first number, or not really by this skylight number. That's basically the light level of where it is during the day. What you want to do is go by the block lighting, and that's really important because most mobs or most common mobs will not spawn at 8 or higher, 8 block level or higher. And these blocks here, interesting thing is that the torch, it's a block, but you can see it has 14 light here. It actually gives off less light than all the rest of these. Now this is an interesting thing. This is a piston over lava because a piston is a transparent block. It can actually put the light through it. So I thought that's kind of a neat way to light up a floor or something. It also works with like a hopper or something like that. But here you have most of these blocks are actually 15, except for the torch. Lava is also 15, but because it's lower, it'll be 14 or 13 in that case. And that's how block lighting goes. So if you have a jack-o'-lantern here, and it's a level 15, my block lighting goes to 14 when I'm beside it, one block. When I move back, another block goes to 13. If I move away, 12. So depending on how many blocks you're away from it, it's going to keep going down and down and down. And mobs like even spiders can spawn on a 1 block space. So you got to keep that in mind. Depending aesthetically how you want these lights to look, look at your F3 and light it up so that no mobs can spawn in there. Now keep in mind, like slimes, if they're in a slime chunk or something like that, they can still spawn in the daytime. Pigmen light has no effect on them. Magma cubes, light has no effect on them. Some mobs, it doesn't matter about the lighting, so you have to do other things to keep that in account. And moving on to the next category, we're going to be talking about block type. Now, there are a number of block types that mobs cannot spawn on, and that is basically kind of transparent blocks, mostly. We have glass. They cannot spawn on there. They also can't spawn on water unless it's a squid. They can't spawn on a half block. They cannot spawn on a chest, a fence, basically any block that you can't walk through. So they can still spawn on redstone dust, they can still spawn on a pressure plate, but they can't spawn on a slab if it's like that. If a slab is on top, they can spawn on that because it's a full block. But if you have something like this, then bats cannot spawn underneath. But even if it's like this, they can't spawn underneath. But mobs can spawn on the top of there. So you got to keep that in mind. But basically any block that you can't walk through, can't walk through a stair, can't that is transparent, not a full block. Pretty much anything like that, then mobs can't spawn on. And of course, bedrock. This is really interesting that that bedrock will not allow a mob to spawn on it naturally. Mojang changed that because of the nether roof is all bedrock. They didn't want pigmen just loading up on top there. But yeah, so block type's very important. I know a lot of mob farms rely on slabs to eliminate spiders from going on there. Spiders can still spawn on a 1 block surface as long as they have 3x3 around it of open air. So eliminating naturally spawning based on aesthetics of the block you choose, that's another good way to deal with natural spawning. All right, moving on to the next category here. This is a method I don't think a lot of map makers either know about or they don't take advantage of, and that is your biome types. So if I press F3, you'll see I am in a desert biome right now, and I am now, if I move over here, I'm in a plains biome, desert, plains. And if you're wondering how I did that, I'm using a third-party program outside of Minecraft called MCEdit. And I'm also using a little attachment called a filter. made by a guy named SethBling. You probably heard of him. He's a popular YouTuber. He came up with a way that you can change even a single block to a different biome. So I've set all these to different biomes. And biomes have different rules of what mob is allowed to spawn naturally inside of it. So for instance, in desert, only hostile mobs are allowed to spawn naturally. No passive mobs can spawn in the desert. So if you want your map, like in my map, complex, I think I did that in. I didn't want any passive mobs spawning in the map, but I did want some hostile mobs spawning kind of naturally in the areas, and just change it to a desert biome. The downside to desert is it's an ugly, ugly vegetation color. It also affects tree leaves except for birch. But you can see here the ocean biome. Look at the grass change color here. The beach biome and the river biome, they also do not allow for passive mobs to spawn, but you can have a nice looking grass in it. So, if you only want hostile mobs spawning naturally, an easy way is just changing the biome type. Now, an interesting thing here is we have the end biome, which sadly they changed it. Used to be called sky biome. Does affect the sky color, unfortunately, which is kind of cool, I guess, but if you don't want it to. The only thing that can spawn in the end biome is an enderman, and if you have it on peaceful, nothing can spawn in there. Or the gorgeous looking luscious grass in the mushroom island. The only thing that can spawn in a mushroom island biome is a mushroom, and it has to be on mycelium. So grass, it's not going to spawn on. So depending on what you want to do with your map, you can change the biome. Now I'll just show you weather, rain. Weather is also, if I go into the mushroom island or the mushroom island biome, the sky it doesn't rain in. The river, the beach, and the ocean, it does rain in, but the desert, it doesn't rain in. So all these little details you got to keep in mind when changing your biome. But I'll leave the link in the description for the filter and to get MCEdit so you can test that out yourself as well. So that's kind of the guideline behind natural mob spawning, letting Minecraft just randomly put mobs into the world and giving you just a little bit of control on which mobs you want to spawn and kind of where they can go. But we're going to be moving on to activated spawning, and that is sort of, I guess, the process of letting the player actively trigger some sort of command or whatever where you can select the specific mob to appear so the player can interact with it. So the first method here, this is the old school. I remember when these came out, people were pretty darn excited here. You got the spawn eggs, you see. It's always a cow. I've got the egg selected here, the cow. You can also put them in dispensers. So I've got silverfish in this one. One of the downsides is, he's going to suffocate, because they actually spawn right inside that block. This is another trick I did in Complex, is back in adventure mode before you had the lock command. You didn't want them to rob it. You could just put a fence there, and if you did that, then they would hop through the fence, and the player couldn't actually break the fence to rob the dispenser. Come up with that little trick. But yeah, spawn eggs are still a great way to make mobs appear. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't get too specific. It's kind of a random, it's kind of like a random skeleton if you spawn it, or a random zombie. It could have armor, it may not have armor. You don't have much control over it that way, but in terms of simplicity, it doesn't really get much easier than that. Load them in some dispensers that could be exactly what you want for your map. So spawn eggs are pretty limited. They don't really work the greatest with dispensers. They're pretty reliable, but you can't really customize with them. Which brings us to the mob spawner or monster spawner. I think these things are great. Even with summon, they still have plenty of uses. I use them in all of my maps, and they don't need any redstone signal to activate, no clock running. They're completely player detected, and you can customize them exactly the same way you can with a summon command. So I've got this one here set up with our blind date, and there he is. And he's trying to give us the flower, but he's a little rough. So get away, get away, get away. I've got this set up so that if we're in range, these flowered pigmen are gonna try to keep giving us the flower. There we go. And I'm just gonna switch it to difficulty peaceful. Okay. So basically, I will put this in the description here. Let me change to creative, this command. But I'll go over it quickly here. I'm setting the block to a mob spawner replace whatever mob you want in here. The spawn data is where you want the mob to spawn to. So here I've got, it's going to go on that gold block. And it's very important that you include the decimal places. So if you don't include decimal places, it won't work. From what I found in my testing, it won't work. So it's 463.5. You can get that number by looking on your XYZ coordinates. If I show you here, 463.5 basically, and 960.5 with the negative on the first number there. So that's going to tell where they're going to spawn. Moving on, it's going to tell us what equipment they have. So a zombie pigman is going to carry a red flower. They just fixed the anger tag. Now we can spawn them hostile, which is great. It's going to spawn one at a time. It's going to spawn, or it's going to check for that same mob within a 50 block radius. So if it doesn't find any, it'll spawn one. If it doesn't find any, it'll spawn one until we get to the max amount, which is at the end. I'll show you in a second. But the required player range, I have to be within 3 places for this to spawn. The delay, the minimum spawn delay, and the max delay is how quickly the mob is going to spawn. And the max nearby entities is 4. So up to 4 pigmen can spawn, and then the spawner will stop. Now there is a bug, I'll link in the description, that if you have over 4 blocks above this, the spawner, even if you have a radius of 100 to 1,000, whatever, the spawner can't track that mob anymore. So anything that flies, spawners don't really work that great with, because they will keep spawning unlimited mobs of that kind. So blazes, gas, even magma cubes, if they jump too high, you might get unlimited mobs because once you're past 4 blocks above or below, it can't find it anymore. Doesn't matter about the radius. But I'll put the link in the description for the command for that mob spawner. And finally, moving on to the glorious summon command. I remember the day this thing came out. I was so excited. This completely revolutionized map making. Now we have a way to specifically set mobs into the world based on a redstone signal. So you can run a clock and have mobs keep popping up anywhere you want. And it doesn't affect any of the mob cap. It's an awesome command. It's a little bit tricky once you start getting custom, but you can do a lot of weird stuff like that. We have a flammable floating TNT block. So whatever you can kind of think of, you might be able to create it. What we have here is we have an invisible zombie with a TNT head and another invisible zombie riding it who's on fire, and they're both invulnerable, so they don't actually die. They're both silent, so you can't hear them, but it looks like floating, burning TNT, and that would be pretty freaky to see in a map if you're trying to scare them. If I go to like adventure mode, oh boy, he's coming after me. A floating flammable TNT block. So I'll put this one in the description as well, but just to show you how I did it, we've got the zombie. It's riding another zombie. And the equipment tag, the last one here is whatever you want their head to be. And if you pick a block, it'll actually override what's on their face. I've got some effects here. Basically, this is an invisible effect. The invulnerable tag means you can't even punch it. It can't be hurt, only by changing your difficulty or typing the kill command. Silent is a new tag that kind of went unnoticed, and I think it's awesome. Like, I can't believe not a lot of people have made videos on this. You can make any mob silent. Like, you could make invisible silent mobs sneak up on you and kill you, and it would be very trolling. Pretty funny to watch, I think. And then equipment of the other mob that's riding, nothing on him so that he'll burn. Same invisible effects, same invulnerability, same silent. Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then, yeah, sometimes it takes time to do that, but play around with that if you want. Once you learn some MBT language or coding, you can pretty much do almost anything you want in Minecraft nowadays. But that would be a pretty cool mob to fight. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Controlling how mobs spawn, I think, is a really important aspect of any map, whether you're doing survival, puzzle, a horror map, any genre you pick, you've got to control how those mobs are going to spawn, or if you want any mob spawning at all. But anyway, thanks guys so much for watching. Leave your comments what you think we'll talk next time. If you have any ideas of what you want to discuss, let me know in the comments. Enjoy your Minecrafting. See you later, guys.